and welcome back to the Kingdom Academy. Today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine from Baton Rouge, from Grace Mid-City, and I like to call it Grace Community, and you just reminded me that it's Mid-City, but you are a community, and so maybe we should think about changing the name for you.
Yeah.
Norman Elrod here. We are going to be talking about a lot of different topics, hopefully.
That's it.
And so a quick bio on you. You are a pastor at Grace Mid-City, and you created, am I correct, you created the Center for Emotional Healing?
Yeah, I was not the creator or founder, but I think I'm the developer.
The developer. Okay. We're going to get into that then. You are an LPC, you're a therapist.
Yep, that's right.
Mental health therapist. You specialize in TBRI?
EMDR and EFT.
You specialize in EMDR?
That's mostly what I do, yeah.
Really? How did I not know this about you?
I'm like an onion, man. I'm full of layers here.
We're going to peel you back a
That's
lot
right,
today.
yeah.
We're really going to get into this. Yeah, we have a few topics we want to talk about with education. We want to talk about church, what that looks like and what that may look like in the future, as well as you have some crackpot theories about what the future is going to look like as well. I definitely want to get into those, especially in regards to leadership and what that looks like. And so first, let's get back to Grace Mid-City. And first of all, explain to us what the Center for Emotional Healing is.
Yeah, great. So in 2017, Grace, at the time, Grace Baptist Church received an anonymous donation of about $350,000 to start a counseling clinic in the Mid-City area. So that came out of us asking the question, how do we love our neighbor? And we saw in that particular zip code a massive need for mental health therapy. And so the pastor at the time, Byron Townsend, knew an LPC, Justin Fernandez, who actually you know, and who worked here at the gathering. But Justin had a really unique way of understanding mental health from a holistic standpoint. And what we saw is that the medical model of healthcare broke people up into parts, and so you would have a general practitioner, and you could have a psychiatrist, and you could have an LPC, and you could have a nutritionist, and you could have a fitness coach, and these people never talk to one another. And so sometimes treatments would conflict, sometimes treatments would have gaps, and so the vision was that we would create a one-stop shop for all your healthcare needs. Everybody would pay something, but it would be accessible for every socioeconomic bracket. And so the first phase of that was the Center for Emotional Healing.
Okay.
And so we broke ground 2018. It was completed in August of 2019. We had a facility on campus we just renovated, so about 1,200 square feet. And now we've got 5 clinicians. So
5 therapists?
5, yeah.
All LPCs? Okay.
Yep.
And so what's the next phase?
It's a great question, Matt. So we kind of abandoned the original idea of the Grace Clinic, and we have now, so in 2024, Grace Church, Mid-City, Grace Baptist Church closed. So we never really recovered after COVID. And so we have no formal congregation anymore. And we function more as a community center. And so we looked at the Center for Emotional Healing, and we envisioned the holistic model being mapped over 4 centers. So the Center for Emotional Healing, the Center for Community Engagement, the Center for Spiritual Direction, and the Center for Physical Healing, which basically is mapped on, in the clinical world, what we call the biopsychosocial model of a human. And so at Grace, we add spiritual to the end of that. So a biopsychosocial spiritual model. It's a holistic, integrative model of what a human is. And so for us, each of those 4 centers are in varying stages of development. And so the next phase is kind of a multi-tiered thing where each of those 4 centers has a next step. And if somebody would write me a check for $2 million, I could tell you exactly what that would look like. But we kind of had to tier it out in a different way. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that was good. Why did you guys decide to go in the direction of more of a holistic perspective as opposed to just being a church, just putting people in pews and just preaching the gospel and the gospel will heal everybody? Why did you go towards a holistic perspective?
That's a real okay. So there's three. It's a good question. There's three different layers to this. Okay, so the first thing is like theologically, at Grace, we never understood the gospel just to be a message for your soul. We understood the gospel to be a message for all of life. And so if the good news was just good news for my soul, but not good news for my body, then who has the good news for my body? Who has good news for education? Who has good news for government? Who has good news for, economic solutions? And so we had to think, well, is Jesus not Lord of all creation? And so theologically for us, and Abraham Kuyper has this famous quote, said, "There's not 1 square inch of planet Earth over which the risen Lord does not declare mine." And we really agreed with that. I was like, yeah, man, like that's the Jesus I serve. And so I think for us, we began to view, and there's a really good book J.B. Small wrote, Your God is Too Small. And that we latched onto that idea. What would it look like if the kingdom, we pray this in the Lord's, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. So it's like, do we really believe that? So it's like, what would it look like for us to take that prayer and put some muscle behind it, put some flesh and bone behind it, and we'll try to do that, right? So theologically, that was kind of driving everything that we were doing. The second thing is just like, Grace is a 20,000 square foot facility on a acre or 1.1 acres in Mid-City, and it's an old building with lots of deferred maintenance. And so we were kind of forced into this position of economic instability where we had to be creative in thinking about, man, when I looked at the budget, 66% of every dollar that came in was being spent on the maintenance of the building. Right? I felt so convicted about that. I felt like we're wasting people's money, we're wasting God's money, and so we had to kind of like make it worth it, so to speak. And so we started inviting the community in. Uh-huh. So we've got like 45 recovery meetings, 12-step meetings. So NA, SA, GA, AA, like all of the recovery meetings that are using the facility. Mm-hmm. We want to bring in other churches. So it's like, hey, it costs us X amount of dollars a month to run this. For 1/3 of that, you can come in and use this facility like it's yours. Mm-hmm. And so we call it a church incubator. So we brought in 2 more churches. Mm-hmm. And then we had the counseling clinic. And so the more that we're trying to stack services, number one is that we're trying to diffuse cost. So just practically, just trying to diffuse cost. But the third level of this is that we began to see something which they talk about in Gestalt theory, that when you're looking at a family unit, that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So that 1 plus 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 3, it actually equals 5. Right. And then, so we started bringing in, the more people we brought in who were different than us, who had different solutions to the same problems. Number one, it was a little bit abrasive. So we had to grow in our ability for emotional maturity and just interpersonal skills. But two is that we also began to see it created this ecosystem where we amplified the effect of one another, right? So for a great example is the counseling clinic on campus. Probably, I think the last number is 40% of the clients from the who use the Center for Emotional Healing also benefit from another service on campus. Mm-hmm. So there's 40% are what we call dual use users.
Crossover.
That's right. So those are kind of my 3 answers. When we started looking at the sustainability of a church, the theological idea of what is God up to on earth, and then just practically how do we actually increase our impact? Because as a nonprofit, we kept running into bottlenecks of manpower. Right. We're just weak by ourselves. It's just but when 1,000 people a week use our facility. And we're a staff of 1 full-time employee and a volunteer and a part-time employee.
Okay, so this is why we're so connected, right? Because the gathering, we started out, and theologically, like our theology has transformed a lot over the years. But one of the things that has remained stable is our pursuit of the mindset of the kingdom of heaven has come near.
That's
or
right.
is near, or has come upon you. And there's a lot of theology that is out there that teaches that the kingdom of heaven is this place that eventually we'll get to when we die, and how everything will be so great and dandy, and you'll have a new body, and it's going to be great. But you can live in hell right now. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What an awful way to live.
That's, yeah.
And for as much as people have gone through over the past decade, whether it be from natural disasters to COVID to trauma, divorce, broken homes, like people live in hell today.
Right. Yeah.
And we want to tell them, like, hey, just put money in the tithe box and you'll go to heaven. Like, what a bunch of crap that is, right?
Yeah.
This is like something that we need to move away from and get to a place of real, genuine healing. And it's only healing that's going to take place in the kingdom. Yeah. But I agree with you. It's holistic, right? We can't just be teaching like this mentality, like, hey, if you believe in Jesus, all your problems are going away, right? That's not it either. There's so many elements that go into that. But then too, you talked about 66 cents on every dollar was going to maintenance. And one of the things that we realized early on was when we wanted to be different, we had to change physically. And theologically, as we looked at the scriptures, we recognized that the tail should not be wagging the dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you are a church that is dependent upon tithes only for your existence, that's going to affect the way you teach, or what you teach, how you teach. It's gonna affect the level of importance of what you highlight as well, as opposed to just being able to speak, here's what the word says. You might not like it. It's not my fault. It's just what the text says. We have to get back to that. And so the idea of creating a system that is location, and then the third part, creating, this ecosystem.
That's right. Yeah.
Like we call this the hub. Yeah. Still to this day, like the gathering is the hub of the community. Like you have parties here, you have counseling here, you have daycare here, you have events, you have all the A's here. There's life takes place in this building. Yeah. And that's what people confuse too. And I tried to change this for a decade, and I finally gave up. But I would tell people, like, stop saying you're going to church. This is a building. Yeah. It's bricks and mortar. All right?
I'm going to the church to receive a service.
The church is when you and I hang out together.
That's right.
Right? The ecclesia, the kahal in Hebrew, is this, when a group of people who recognize that they have a spiritual mandate to be a chosen royal priesthood. That's ecclesia. Yeah. It's not a building. It's not a place where you go. It's not a place to get fed.
It's a revolutionary movement.
It's an awakening.
That's right. There's a sense in which, like, when you come into like that a group of people who have that mindset, there's almost this like, I'm okay. This is almost,
let's say it.
There's almost a militant spirit to it.
Sure.
Where we're gonna take ground for the kingdom of God, because if we don't, like, this idea that there's like a neutral or passive option in life is completely false. Like, you are being actively formed either this way or that way. Right. There's the broad way and there's the narrow way, but there's not no way.
Right.
Right. It is happening. And we, like, socially, when you wake up in the morning, you are entering a contested worldview battleground. And there is a worldview that's being created. And so, like we were talking earlier about, that you're the sum of the five people around you. Right. It's like, well, man, if you walk into like the early church and you stepped into that room, like there's some fire there. There's a sense of like zeal there that's like you don't feel always when you come in and you get your latte and you sit on your cushy chair and you hear great worship music and because that's, and I think, by the way, that's the future, is you have to go back to house church, or you got to grow and get big, because the economic landscape is squeezing out. You can't be a small church of 100, 150 to 200 people and be able to pay for your building, pay your pastor full time, who has a family, and do ministry. Like you can't. I don't think you can do that anymore. Or it's increasingly becoming that. So there's a really good book by Mark Sayers, who wrote a book called he wrote one called Disappearing Church, and he wrote another one called Reappearing Church. And he basically it's controversial. He talked about how communism was spread, and that they would have these reading groups, and everybody had to do the reading, and they had to show up knowing that they could potentially be called upon to teach the lesson.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is, I mean, this was part of my master's thesis in history. Like the original, not the original, the synagogue in the first century, in Jesus' day, Yeshua's day, that is what it was. Any male over the age of 13, because at 13 was a bar mitzvah, you're supposed to be able to read. Any male over 13 was required or assumed that you would get up and read a portion of the Torah or read a portion of the prophets. And then if you felt like you wanted to give a little, tidbit of your, examination of it or, a little homily, you could. It was not the rabbi's job. The rabbi taught school Monday through Friday or Sunday through Friday, either or. That was the rabbi's job. He didn't get up and preach or teach or any of that. That was your job.
Dude, so different, right?
So every person in the community was held to a responsibility of your job is to know this, which goes back to Deuteronomy 6:4, right? I was watching a sermon. I was watching a clip from a church, mega church, right? And they were like, what is the commandment that God gives? He simplified it and made it so easy to love God and love people.
Yeah.
And we were talking about postmodernism, right?
Yeah.
When we simplify these terms so much, then they lose the meaning of what it really is.
Yeah.
And if you simplify Jesus' answer and you miss the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hear O Israel, the Lord our God. The first part of that is to love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your me'od, which is, we could talk about that later. But we stop there. But Jesus is using a remez. So he's like, I'm saying this sentence, but you know the rest of it. You have already had it memorized.
Right.
But we don't.
That's right.
But we miss the context of what he's saying. Because if you read just the very next sentence, what does it say? What is it? If you were to ask the question, what does it mean to love God with all of my heart and soul and muchness, all my stuff?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Yeah. The very next sentence says, and you are to put these words on your heart diligently. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first thing that I have to learn about loving God is whatever he says, I'm supposed to put that into me. That's a way that I love him.
Yeah.
The second thing is, what it says right after that? And this is what blows my mind, and this is where the church, I believe, has failed. Mm. It says, and you are to teach these to your children when they rise, when they go to bed, and when they walk along the way. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you do that?
You got to live it.
You model it.
Yeah.
It's the greatest form of teaching.
That's right.
But how do you model it if you don't know it?
Yeah. And I think that's where you blend the cognitive and the embodied, right? Like Descartes comes along and it says, I think, therefore I am. And what God says, no, I am that I am. I am existence,
I am,
right? And if we are creating his image, there's an element in which our existence is modeled after that. And that even if I don't, so we had a special needs adult ministry at Grace, cognitively disabled adults.
Wow, that's awesome.
And what we saw is if the gospel is impinged upon your cognitive ability to understand, these guys are out. They can't pray the sinner's prayer. Right? Well, here's what they could do. They could be formed through the social modeling of the group, right? So that's what we started doing the Lord's Supper every Sunday, right? Because we had a sacramental theology. We saw that everything is sacred. It's either desecrated or consecrated.
Amen.
And these guys could participate in the ritual and the habit of formation. And there was a Sunday school class where there was cognitive instruction, and it was the Wild West, and it was wonderful, man. I mean, it was some of the best moments were teaching the special angels class, is what they called themselves. And so I think Descartes is helpful in a lot of ways, but the church has to recover an embodied way of being. So that word muchness,
me'od,
yeah. Right? I had a professor tell me it's guts.
No.
With all your guts. Love the Lord your God with all your guts.
Yeah, that's what it's translated.
Right.
But it's a bad translation. Me'od is an untranslatable Hebrew word. It means muchness. You wouldn't use that. I mean, what's muchness?
Right.
Right.
Sounds like a.
So you love the Lord your God
Carroll.
with all of your lev, your nefesh, and your meod. Your lev is anything inside your skin that you can't see. I can't see the lev inside of you. So it's your guts. It's your intuition. It's
atoms.
that neurobiology that you feel, all of those chemicals that are swirling around in your brain when you feel something.
It's like a catch-all.
It is a catch-all for anything, your emotions, anything, psychology, everything. Then your nefesh is your skin. What is your skin? Everything I see you do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And then your muchness, me'od, is what? Everything that you might own, have contact with, that's associated with you.
So it's like this idea, you don't hold anything back from the creator of the universe when you come to love him.
Nothing.
Yeah. And it's that, what Jesus tells the rich young ruler, like, go and sell all you have. And he went away sad because he had much possessions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about this a lot in parenting. I've got 3 kids, 5, 3, and 1. And, I thought the thing that had most shaped me as a human and as a man and as a Christian was being married. Dude, parenting. My mentor told me, he said, the second hardest job on the earth is parenting. The hardest job on the earth is keeping a marriage together while you're doing it. And I was like, man, I feel it now. Because when he said it, I was like, hey, man, are you okay? you and Cynthia, y'all doing okay? It's like, yeah, it was just normal, right? It's just hard. And what I've seen is like, it doesn't matter what I say. Not really. I mean, a little bit it does. Mostly it matters what they watch me do. Particularly when I'm having hard, distressing, vulnerable moments with my own emotional experience. That's when the teaching happens. And so literally the other day, my son saw me lose my temper. Not necessarily at him, but he was in the arena while he saw it happen. And I'm not mad. Like 3 hours later, he got frustrated with a toy. And I saw him lose his temper. And it was like, I mean, if there had been a more I was undone. And I was like, I gotta do better. It's not good enough. I have to grow. I gotta be more mature because I'm giving him a runway to a certain life. Either the broad way or the narrow way. Like he'll have emotional maturity and bandwidth that his peers do not have, or he'll have emotional frailty that his peers do not have. Right? And it's that idea, that generational curse thing can get a little superstitious, right? Yeah. But I'm not saying there's not a supernatural component to it, but what I'm saying is there's for sure a neurocognitive component to it.
Oh, I believe, and not in a curse way. Like I believe when Moses says that you will be pass these curses down to the 4th generation. I've seen it in my own family. My grandmother was. When she was born, her mother died at childbirth. Her dad was grief-stricken and found solace in her mom's sister. Married the sister, had children with the sister. My grandmother lived with her grandparents in a separate family, always knowing that's my father. The amount of trauma and insecurity that was then passed down generationally, I still fight with, and I've like for a long time I'm like, where does this insecurity come from? And we all have insecurity, but I could trace mine. I know that trauma came down in that path. And so it is something that has to be intentionally broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a choice that has to be made. Like. And I think that's really cool with Jesus, says, choose this day, or Joshua, choose this day whom you'll serve, as whom I will serve the Lord. And Jesus says something very similar. If anyone will come after me, he's to deny himself, pick up his cross and follow me. The humiliating path of a cross, right? And that's what trauma therapy is. Like trauma therapy is like you attuning with a stronger, wiser other. And, they say 80% of all efficacy in therapy is the relationship. And it's basically the degree to which you feel safe with another human who has competency and strength is the degree to which you have the It's like you're taking a line of credit from my nervous system to go out and look at your trauma where you don't have the resources to do so, right? And so you go and you look at that, and it's terrible, and it's scary, and it's horrifying, and then you're able to keep your emotional balance because there's another nervous system curiously, compassionately attuning to your experience and helping scaffolding meaning around that. And it's like that person, when that happens, in a trauma setting, it's beautiful and wonderful, and it's like heady, and it's cathartic and emotional, all the things. But that person then has to make a decision to come back and do it again the next week, and then to come back and do it again the next week.
Right.
And I can see how many people wash out because it's just like, no, I'm not doing that again.
Well, sure. Who wants to bring up all of their pain over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Now, yes, it makes sense. I'm going to bring this up because I want healing.
Yeah.
But are we, and maybe that's another topic that we can switch to, but are we at a place in time and space where people have the emotional or psychological strength to persevere and move forward?
Man, and I tell you, Matt, what I'm seeing, so Gen Z, man, like the wreckage of the digital age and screens, they are a serious disadvantage, from my opinion, in that the top issue I see right now is what I am terming consensual sexual assault.
Wait, what?
Yep. In that, I am seeing a lot of college age girls, women, who are entering into these consensual hookups with college age guys, and the sexual act that takes place is like, I think it is downstream from the influence of porn culture. And so there's choking, there's hitting, there's it's violence, right? And that's that's the extreme.
So it used to be a fetish is now becoming mainstream.
Yeah, and it's like it's normal, right? And so now these are the girls who come to therapy, right? And so the reason they come to therapy is that nightmares. That's the big one, right? Intrusive thoughts, suicidal ideation, diminished sense of self-worth, diminished sense of agency,
sure.
Right? All these things, and never is the connection explicitly made in the intake form. I think it's because of what happened this night, right? We get there, but it's almost like the voice for them to say that is like there's no permission for them to say that because there's this expectation that like, hey, this is normal. This is what's happening in the bedrooms now. Like if you go hook up, I'm sorry, this is just like I'm running this rabbit.
No, but this is good, and it just leads me to another question of like, first of all, like when, in your opinion, and why did pornography become normalized?
So I assume right now, if you're 40 years old and under, and you're a man, that you have at some point in your life struggled with a pornography addiction, right? And it's, by the way, it's contested clinically that it's even an actual diagnosis. Like there's a portion of the clinical world that says sexual addiction is not real, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. And so the pivot has been this massive community of people who say, okay, you may say clinically it's not real, but we have unwanted sexual desires that we do not want, that are not debilitating, but are distressing to us, right? And so, man, you can go, yeah. So I think the internet, I mean, it blew up, and the parents, the Gen Xers and the Boomer parents, the computer was just, there was no password, there was no filter, and so an entire generation of young boys discovered what they are biologically programmed to desire, and that they could drink from that faucet and the tap never be turned off. And now it's about half of women. I think it's actually 33% of women.
So do you have statistics that you know of that show the repercussions of just absolute indulgence in pornography for youth?
So there's a book called Unwanted by Jay Stringer, which is the best book I have read on sexual addiction, and he has all the statistics. Well, his work, he did some original research that was really fascinating. And what he saw, and this is the big idea behind his book, your sexual fantasies and your sexual desires are actually the roadmap to your healing. So they're actually telling you the truth about what you didn't get. And so, for example, like a user of pornography might gravitate towards older women, right? And, well, come to find out, that particular user fits a profile of people who had a poor relationship with their mother, right? And that's
so Freudian type.
Well, but I'm oversimplifying. It's attachment based.
Okay.
So when we think of the normative pathway for humans to develop, is that every human that is born is other regulated. A baby is incapable of calming themselves down, right? Mm-hmm. And so they need another nervous system to attune, to respond, and to meet their needs, right? And that baby learns, oh, I can calm down because someone will come to me, right? And then as they grow and progress, they become what we call co-regulated, which is they're learning to do it a little bit, but they may still fall and hurt their knee, and they need dad and mom to come pick them up and teach them, instruct them. And as they grow, they become self-regulated. That's the great myth, that humans are self-regulated. Adults are self-regulated, right? We never really stop we don't become autonomously regulated.
No.
And so in that normative pathway of human development, if you introduce a regulative mechanism, like porn, then that person develops a emotional, what we call a maladaptive coping mechanism. So adaptive coping mechanism is one that's rewarded and is seen as beneficial. So like workaholism in America is usually seen as an adaptive coping mechanism because we reward people who work hard, right? But alcoholism would be a maladaptive coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. And so that normal pathway begins to be interfered with and stunted. And so I think what we're seeing circle all the way around, Gen Z, they don't know, like intuitively, and it's not a cognitive, like I don't know how to do this, like I can read this in a book, but they don't have the muscle memory in their nervous system for how to access resources from other people to help them regulate their nervous system, though they long for it desperately.
That's crucial.
Yeah.
Because we live in an era, the anxious generation, Jonathan Haidt, the statistics, like we are becoming the most lonely, anxious, suicidal generation.
Yeah.
And a lot of it due to the fact that we have social media that is, and this goes right to what you just said, like because we don't have the ability to have a relationship with somebody. Like we think, I have friends, but that is not what we need.
Right.
We need somebody that can share our, as you said, our nervous system and go through the struggles that I'm going through. I'm not going to get that online. I'm just not going to find that. Like, that's not going to, nobody's going to be able to share, because first of all, I mean, who's going to be real? Like, this is what I'm really struggling with. And you're going to post that online. Because once you post it online, guess what? It's there forever. So nobody's going to post that online. But yet, going back to what we talked about, I think at the beginning, or maybe in my office, the idea of the ecclesia, like the kahal, like that is yes, it's biblical, but it's the depth of that. There's so many layers to that, and it goes back to just this need for relationship. Genesis, 2, man was not meant to be alone.
That's right, and we've made that about marriage.
Oh it's not.
It is, but it's also more.
Yes, it's so deep.
Right. And I think we see this there was a study that I saw about, I have to find it, but basically the brain damage done to inmates in solitary confinement.
Oh,
So it's like...
It's torture.
Yeah, it's torture. Like, it actually breaks the brain. And so, Reddit is a fascinating place. Reddit. I mean, for all that it is, what you have is, like, people... And I think there's an element in which you will catch people are almost performing. They're performing to be an authentic human. So they're not actually able to be authentic, but they're performing a bit or a part as if they're authentic, right? And so that's a lot of what happens online. I think is this performative culture. right? I mean, you see with Instagram, with like social media, but even in Reddit, where it's supposedly an anonymous forum where I think you're still playing for something, and that when you're in the flesh, in the blood, right? I don't know that the development of our brains. I tell my clients, you can't beat biology. You can't beat biology. When you're in the room with someone and someone is angry and inflamed and activated, you go in there and tell me if your nervous system doesn't notice that. And tell me how long it is before your nervous system begins to mirror that nervous system. So this is like a really big idea in the clinical world, is that when I am engaging with you, so let's say you have horrific trauma. Can't talk about it. The moment we get close to it, we start talking about it, you dissociate, right? Which is super common. Dissociation, we listen to that. What is that? I believe that is the fail switch in your brain because God in his benevolence and omniscience knew that we were going to bite the apple and that we're going to live in a horrible world without anesthesia for most of it. And so he gives us this switch in his goodness to say, dissociate, right? So we don't want to mess with dissociation, we want to listen to it. But how do we make progress clinically? I just need you to be able to notice in very small increments that it feels safe and good to connect with me. I need you to notice that it is pleasurable to interact with another human. Because the more I can get you to notice that, the more that you'll want that. But also, the more influence my nervous system is able to exert over you. So the more that you trust me, the more influence you're giving me, right? And so, if you're a bad therapist, that's very dangerous because you could do a lot of harm with a lot of influence. But if you're a good therapist, you've been well trained and you're attuned in that moment, then what you're noticing is that I'm getting leverage points for healing, right? And I can begin to move a little bit and nudge a little bit towards some curiosity and openness. And so I don't need you to know the facts. I don't need you to know the right propositions about, what normal human development is. I don't need you to become a therapist. I just need you to notice that it feels good to connect with another human. I need you to then notice that it feels good to be cared for. And I then need you to notice that it feels good for someone to be curious about you. And the more that I can get you to notice that it feels good to interact with a human, the more your brain changes. So nothing at any point in there are we doing a cognitive intervention for you to memorize. Like our education system compared to our therapeutic system, there's a huge disconnect there. Because education, the formation of a human, is all about how can you retain facts and be obedient in class. But therapeutically, I'm getting you to notice what it feels like to connect. It's experiential, it's embodied, and over here it's cognitive. And these worlds don't talk enough, right? Because this kid who can't memorize facts doesn't feel safe in the classroom because he was up all night with loud music in his house, and there were strangers coming into the house for a party all night. He doesn't know where his parents are. His mom or dad are gone, and he's got to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get his little siblings fed and dressed for school, and then they get on the bus and they go to school, and now he's exhausted, he's overstimulated, he doesn't feel safe, and the teacher's yelling at him because his uniform's not right. Where's the kingdom in that?
Right.
So I think we need to change, the question of what are humans for is foundational. What are humans for? Are we a repository for information? Are we any different than a data center? Right? Here, you exist to be filled with information. No, man. Humans exist to love and be loved. The attunement of connecting, like we were talking earlier about, imagine a world in which all of our material needs are met. What's left? To love and be loved.
Right.
To be known. The connection between us.
Well, this goes back to, I'm going to circle back to your Descartes. This goes back to, I think, the Western view of faith has missed something because we look at the Greek word pistis, faith, as cognitive. It's what I think in my mind. And I just need knowledge. And if I just have more knowledge, I'll have more faith. But the Hebrew word is imunah, which is better translated faithfulness. It's not what I think. It's how I live.
It's how I live, man.
And so how I live is about how I interact with you, my relationship with you, how much I let you in, Like the depth of that, the rabbis in Jesus' day understood this. They said the reason that Jesus said, love God and love people was because they understood the way that I love you is a demonstration of how I love God.
Right.
The depth and love that I have for you, the more that I let you in, the more that I serve you, the more the empathy and compassion that I have for you, that's what it means to love God.
So it's like loving others is a litmus test.
Yes.
So you say you love God, we'll prove it by loving others.
Let me see it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think that the discipleship failure that I grew up in, I'm 36, so like that's the era. Like we were not taught like the mechanics of love. Like we can break down. We know what love looks like now. Like we can scientifically break down what it looks like. Like empathy has 4 parts. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studies empathy and burnout. Brene Brown quotes her all the time. Yeah. But she's like, there's 4 parts: recognizing emotion in others, recognizing an impact in yourself, staying out of judgment of that emotion in others, and then communicating that. It's like non-judgmentally noticing and communicating is what empathy is. And we know that, but like, how beneficial would it have been if the church had been able to say, we're going to teach you practically how to develop strong interpersonal relationships. What I was taught was like apologetics and how to defend the faith from the new atheist movement coming in. I was like, well, let me tell you how much time I've spent doing that versus how much time I've spent trying to love myself, love God, and love others, The first year of marriage, where you're crashing together 2 nervous systems and we're going to put them in a house together and you're going to live. This is a weird little experiment we're running. And it's just like...
Yeah, and here's where the clash is really going to come. Because at the beginning you said that there's going to be a split between churches that need to go back to the house and then the mega church.
Yeah.
And there's a problem with that I see right now logically. If we take the steps out, one, how many people have the emotional ability to sit down in a house and be genuine and authentic with somebody? And like you got 10 people in the room, like this is an opportunity for us to be real and like, ooh, this is too weird for me. I don't know if I can do this. Where I can go to the mega church and I can be a number.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to take the most charitable view here possible, mapping some clinical experience over it. So there are clients that we have to hang out for like a year before we can go into the deep dive, because the pace based on their attachment history and their trauma.
Even with EMDR?
Oh yeah. So I have the client that I have that has seen the most trauma. Sorry, I didn't expect to get emotional right there. Cannot truly fathom how they survived.
Wow.
Apart from like human resilience and like just God, like hand of protection. And they know that. They say, I don't know who they are or what it is, but I believe that there is a power that is protecting me.
Wow.
Okay, so this client, we started out with EMDR. We followed the typical protocol. It takes me 4 sessions to, just do psychosocial evaluation, and then we're doing resourcing, and then we get to, okay, now we're at session 8, we're kind of ready to roll, start actual processing. I use buzzers. And they can't do it, man. They're thrown into dissociation. And there are protocols that, and methods to work with dissociating in that. But we had to take a step back from that and do something called parts work, which is internal family systems, which was way more productive because it's a far more gentle approach. But that whole timeline was like a year before we could start getting into pay dirt about like the true view of self, view of others, working around like core beliefs. Like the core belief is just that I'm pathetic. That's the core belief there, right? And so, yeah, like it takes a lot of time, I think, for different nervous systems to acclimate to be able to receive love. So when we go to small church, mega church, I think what mega church in the most charitable view can offer people is a very gentle on-ramp for their nervous system to begin to think about spiritual things. So if you take people who are completely materialistic, just totally divorced from any spiritual framework, an easy entry point could be house church, right? Hey, come in, and we're just going to be friendly, right? And we can very gently teach you about the spiritual things. But if you take people who have trauma histories. Coming in to be known is terrifying because growing up or in very important ways and times, they were known and that knowledge was used against them, was weaponized against them. And so the adaptive coping mechanism they have learned is it's not safe to be known. And so how, with this real longing for God, how can I be known? And yet, like, I don't want to be known, but how can I know God? So there's this push-me-pull thing. And I think there can be on-ramps. I think the mega church can be the Christian industrial complex where it's just churning out numbers and it's toxic and sick. But I also think large-scale churches that offer a degree of distance, relational distance, there can be a place for them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't say. I mean, it depends on the megachurch. I think a megachurch can be a very good thing.
Yeah.
You used the word on ramp. I think that's a good word.
Yeah.
It's a good on ramp to introduce somebody to maybe a new spirituality or a new faith, or like, who is this Jesus really? Yeah. And they have the maybe the money and the acoustics and all the stuff that like is relevant, that makes me feel like, okay, this is kind of cool. I can come here. I can be a part of this. Yeah. And I think it's a very positive environment for that. But I think that where it lacks is that next step. It's not class 100 or 102 or 201 or whatever. It's that depth of like, okay, now let's move into real faith. Let's move into like real genuine community. Let's be real with each other. Some churches can do that.
Yeah.
But the larger you are, the harder that becomes. But I think that small middle road 100 to 200 church, I think that's where it's really going to struggle. And I don't think that I'm kind of in agreement with you. I don't know if those will survive. I think it will be the mega churches and then the small, smaller community-ish house church.
So the MIT living wage calculator says for Baton Rouge, the living wage, not savings, like not vacation, like this is just bare minimum, for a family of 4 is like $96,000 before taxes. So you take a church of 100 people, and they're paying their pastor, let's say they're paying their pastor $100,000. That is a lot of money for that little church.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. And for that pastor and his family, that's a living wage.
A living wage is $96,000?
According to the MIT living wage calculator.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, right? And you can look at the economic trends after COVID. Bro, it's like we're doing this, and then COVID hits, and it's like where the cost of living has outpaced the earning potential. So there's another great data point. United Way puts out this report, I'm sure you're familiar with, the ALICE report, Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. And so I think like Louisiana, I think like 15% of Louisiana is like below the poverty line. ALICE are those people who are above the poverty line, but I forget, I think they make less than $88,000 or $83,000 a year. So that's 50% of Louisiana. 50% of Louisiana are ALICE and below. And these are people who like when they get their tax return back, they use that money to pay off debt. They use that money for big purchase, like new water heaters. So like there's no margin. So most of the people that I know, and I was growing up a member of ALICE, and for most of my life I've been a member of ALICE, didn't even know it.
Right. And
that's the economic reality. And now, like the minimum, the living wage, I think, the minimum wage is like $7.25, and it hasn't been raised in like 12 years. And it was just struck down to not be raised. But like this is one of my theological heroes is Craig Bartholomew. And you would really, if you don't know him already, you would love him because he's always talking about the Jewishness of Jesus. And
I think I've heard of him, yeah.
And so he said that the missiological frontier for the 21st century is economics. That for the vast number of people, the number one call of suffering in their life is economic.
That's funny because Edwin here, over doing the recording here, keeps saying like, hey, you need to do a talk on economics. You need to talk about finances and teach people about finances because this is one of the biggest struggles that we're having right now. So maybe you'll see that in the next.
And United Way is like people need to be paid more. That's the solution to reducing the Alice gap. But the question I want to ask is, how do we reduce the cost of everything?
Well, that's what AI is doing. The whole assumption with
Yeah.
AI is that you will have mass deflation.
Okay, this is new. I've
Yes.
not heard this associated with AI.
So-
I've heard the other thing.
Because of and this within the decade, maybe in the next 5 years, you will have AI that is doing so much work and creating so much product faster and more efficient than humanity that there will be an abundance, which means the prices will drastically come down. And so the cost of you buying something will, be like 50 to 100% less than what you were spending a year ago.
But is there also a correlating decrease in employment?
Of course.
Okay, so there's things going to be cheaper, but you're gonna have a job to make money.
Right, which is why
So the gap will still be there.
why they're saying we need a thing, UBI, universal basic income, or
Yeah.
some people are saying it's going to be universal high income. And it might be, let's just say theoretically it's $3,000 a month that we're going to give you. And $3,000 a month, that's still below the poverty level. But if you have mass deflation and everything costs a fraction of what it used to, $3,000 is like $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so that's the theory. Now, I don't know if we're going to get there, but that's the theory.
I've heard it said that if the rest of the world consumed at the rate of America, that we would need 4 worlds to sustain that. That's just like and that most of the world, like you want to talk about economic inequality, like
Sure.
the West, we're freaking out about like the pay gap and Alice populations, but most of the world is in poverty, right? And the situation that I'm worried about, or I think about a lot, is like, what's the future of America in the West? But really, how is the future of the West connected to the future of the globe? For those people who are already struggling, those people who are already like not able to make ends meet, living on, I think it's less than $2 a day, most of the world, and
we're complaining because Amazon didn't show up today.
we're complaining because Amazon didn't show up.
Right.
And I don't think there's any check on Americans right now on what their desire. Like I don't think I'll speak for me. I don't think how me desiring a new tool is impacting my brother and sister who lives in, a third world country. Though it does. It has a direct impact. Our consumption is connected to their exploitation and oppression. There's a fascinating documentary I just saw on piracy in Africa, off the coast. I forget
Ivory Coast.
I think the Ivory Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And so these men are being interviewed, and they're incredibly hostile, but they start to open up, and they're pirates because the West comes and oppress, and they don't employ the villagers.
Interesting.
So it's just like, to what degree is our consumption propped up by exploitation?
There's a Hebrew word called yetzer. Have you ever heard yetzer?
No.
Yetzer hara and yetzer hatov, and it's translated as the good inclination or the evil inclination. And it comes from Genesis. James talks about it as well, but it's the idea of that all human beings, and you would like this because it's connected to desire. It would be the same word, right? Every human being has a yetzer inside of us.
Okay.
But it's up to us whether we follow the evil inclination
That's right.
or the good inclination.
Yeah.
And as you talk about desire, like our desire is so often just selfish. I want more, give it to me now.
Yeah.
I mean, instant gratification. We
That's
have
right.
to have it.
Yeah.
And that's the United States right now. We live in this world of no restraint and no
Yeah.
discipline.
It's so bad for us.
It's like eating, cereal and pouring a box of sugar into it, and I'm just eating that every day. Like at some point, it kills you.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the trajectory.
Yeah.
And we were talking about with AI,
Yeah.
we are creating a hedonistic utopia. Every desire you possibly want, you can have because of AI.
I think it's hostile to the development of faith.
It's hostile what?
To the development of faith.
Oh, yes.
I don't know that faith can truly develop. Maybe faith can develop anywhere, but if I were to think of optimal conditions for the development of faith, they must include adversity and challenge and ambiguity.
why would that be anything different than the way your body is? I mean, your body doesn't just grow muscles by eating sugar and sitting on a couch.
It can if you inject stuff, right? I mean, that's what these. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But same thing with leadership. Same thing with relationships. They're hard. It takes energy. It takes effort.
But you can take a pill or an injection and lose a lot of weight and have your best life now, and you can get a Botox, and you can. We're obsessed with beauty right now, like with our appearance and our performance and how we look and how easy it is to attain it. But I wonder neurologically what's happening to us that we didn't pay the hard-earned cost to get there, you know?
Well, all of these things, and AI is built this way. AI is built on patterns, pattern recognition, patterns of. It's all built on patterns. Yeah. If you go see that movie, AI Doc, they'll talk about that.
Yeah.
What, as a historian, I've learned is that the history of humanity is not linear.
Yeah. It's
not like we started here, and now here's where we are now, and then we're going to end up down there. History is cyclical. It's like a slinky. It's not a circle. It's like a slinky. So every time it repeats, it depends on how you or what you choose in that moment that will either repeat exactly or change it a little bit or make it better in that moment.
Yeah.
And so you can go through all of the scriptures and you can see these little moments where, like, oh, that sounds much like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, why is Jacob doing that? When,
That's
you know,
right.
we see that. You know, we see these patterns. Like, these people are so dumb. Why are they keep doing this? And we're the same people.
That's right.
And so we can see the same patterns that we're coming up now. We've seen these already in history hundreds of times.
Yeah.
The question is, what choice are we going to make today?
To be different, yeah.
To be different. Or are we going to be the next Rome that crumbles?
That's
right. Are we
right.
going to be the next empire that just falls? And all empires end the same way.
That's right.
From inside.
Yeah.
They destroy themselves.
Yeah. Decadence. Indulgence. And I think, like, one of my mentors told me, he's thinking about that poem T.S. Eliot wrote about the wasteland, you know, that T.S. Eliot was a believer in Christ who began to see that the world was trying an experiment to live apart from a transcendent view. He said the experiment is going to end. We just have to be patient, biding the time, preserving the faith. And my mentor said the church is to become a rose in the desert. So as pilgrims are wandering the wasteland, they will discover the beauty and inquire, what is this? To which we will answer, this is the church. This is the faith. And so it's less about, I used to think heresy was like incorrect propositions about God and life. Heresy can be, you know, sugar on your cereal. Heresy can be buying into this way of living to preserve youthfulness, right? Heresy all these different embodied distortions of what the good life is supposed to be, of what the kingdom on earth is supposed to be. Heresy is disembodiment today, right? And how can I go, and let's talk about AI, transhumanism. How can I go beyond the natural limits of humanity? And I think that is in part a little bit what is a controversial take, what the Nephilim were about, in that you had the angels, the fallen angels, trying to breed back into humanity eternal life, apart from God's way of doing it. This is Michael Heiser, who's.
Oh, that's funny. I just taught on this about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We've seen artificial intelligence already before.
That's right.
And it's already from the beginning. The Nephilim were the first.
That's right.
They were not human, but they were kind of like human.
Yeah.
You know,
trying to transcend.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Apart from surrender to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you go to the next story, which is the Tower of Babel, which was, you know, creating bricks, making all people the same, not stones, the bricks.
Man.
That's the story of the Tower of Babel, was about tyranny and authoritarianism. It was the very first. You know, Nimrod was the first tyrant. Yeah. And in the Hebrew, that he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. It says it twice, pointing out that he's not talking about animals. It's about humans.
Wow.
He was a mighty hunter for humans. And
a slaver.
Yeah, so his whole the idea was before he said let's create this giant this great city, he said let's create bricks. Well, that's out of order. When you cast the vision before you talk about how you're going to do it, and so the Hebrew points out that like this is the whole point. He's creating a system to enslave people,
Whoa.
and they're all going to be the same. Well, what is artificial intelligence and social media, and like it's creating everybody that thinks exactly the same based on the algorithm that you participate in.
And who's controlling the algorithm? Who's Nimrod?
Right. That's what we don't know. Who is it really that is controlling all of this,
The
right?
Illuminati. I knew it.
Gosh,
I
man.
knew it.
Yeah. So, man, we probably got to stop there. But this is a lot. I think we could continue this for a couple more hours, but
Yeah, we'll turn the cameras off. I've got some more questions. Yeah.
but this was good. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure, man.
Thank
This
you
is
for
great.
sharing, man. This was, just the ideas of, I think we have to introduce a new conversation within the ecclesia of challenging the status quo. Oh, and that was, okay, so one last thing.
Okay, great.
Heresy.
Yeah.
That word comes from, Paul talks about heresies, and unfortunately I think it's mistranslated, misunderstood, because in the original context, in the original language of Greek, heresy was not a bad thing. It was a differing opinion. And so one of the things that the church has done for millennia is we've squashed out any controversy of difference of opinion.
Yeah.
You have to believe this theologically, and if you don't, guess what? You're going to hell.
Yeah.
And that's why there's how many different denominations within the Catholic Church? There's 48,942 Protestant denominations, and each one of those denominations will tell you everybody else is going to hell because you don't agree with their theology.
That's right.
Well, what the hell kind of theology is that?
Yeah, that's right.
So we have to get back to the idea that no, a difference of opinion is a good thing.
Yeah.
It actually challenges what I think, because there could be holes in what I think.
So I see this clinically in that when people at the end of their trauma therapy, the last thing that we talk about is God, right? So if you were to say, I don't want to talk about God, I don't have any problem with God, I'm going to believe that, right? So the goal is not that you come to agree or disagree on a certain view of God or not. The goal is that you are able to, with your free will, to have an encounter with God for yourself, right? And trauma prevents that because trauma layers these assumptions about God and about other people and about what's true that are implicit. And so you have to uncover those. We call them lies, or trauma bonds. And when you pull those back, then people are able to actually ask the question, well, who is God? Or what is God? And do I want a relationship with God? And usually what I have seen 10 times out of 10, without exception, when those people begin to reach into the transcendent cosmos, there is something that reaches back. Every time.
Wow.
Right? And it doesn't always look like Jesus, for me. And so that's who I believe is the Lord of the universe. But I'm not trying to lead them. I'm not proselytizing therapeutically. Right. I'm trying to give them the agency to choose for themselves. And I think what happens is that those people who come to know that there is an intelligence in a being beyond my perception, what they need then is a gentle path of formation on prayer. How do you then talk to this? How do you then interact with this? And then your nervous system has been designed so that you amplify your connection when you're in community. And so let's put you in a room with other people who are praying and other people who aren't putting judgments. And then as we begin to collectively reach to this being, and this is scripture, all who call upon the name of the Lord should be saved. Right? And so as we begin to call upon the name of the Lord, I don't think he's offended that we hadn't got the name right yet, right? And that he then needs us there. Those who draw near to the Lord, he shall draw near to them. And so we see these biblical principles playing out without the biblical language happening over them. And so this communal group, we call it the God Lab, by the way, this communal group begins to corporately reach for God, and God reaches back. And as we begin to assign some norms to that, now we're doing religion. Okay, we're ascribing rituals and norms and codes and prescripts to give some sort of language and scaffolding to a transcendent being that we can understand. And well, guess what? You know who the best representation of this transcendent being is? It's actually Jesus, right? And so, you know what? Why don't we start? What if this is the same guy? And so let's pray to Jesus. And Christianity is this other beast.
Right.
And we're not talking about Christianity. We're talking about Jesus, right? And so there's a couple books that do a really good job of presenting who Jesus is, and we'll go through those books. And then I'd say 7 out of 10 they hit. But there's some people, it's like, man, I couldn't get through the book. The book didn't do anything for me, And so, but it's okay. Just keep coming. And then the group, because there are 7 people in the group that it did hit for. And then as we begin to have this progression of safety and communal awareness and attunement to God, and God is attuning back, and the Holy Spirit is with us, then we start introducing Scripture. And only then do we start introducing Scripture, right? And then the Scripture becomes this other person in the room, and it starts speaking back to us. And so there's this process that's happening that when we just kind of stop trying to control it and we just let God be the one who's in control, like He's the CEO, He shows up. I think there's so much anxiety in the church about God not showing up, and so we have to step in the gap. And so in a family cycle, we call this the parentification of a child, and it's always bad. That when the parent is meant to be the stronger, wiser other who's got the plan, who knows the play, who can come in and they're non-anxious. They don't need anything. Care comes from them, not up to them, right? But we as the church get anxious and we step in to try to cover God's ass. Well, guess what? He doesn't need that. And when we just make space and we make the requests clear and we keep making the requests clear, He shows up. So anyway, sorry, I got on a little tangent.
That's great. We'll end on that, man. I mean, just that whole concept, that idea, I think is what's necessary.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get back to the roots of what's important.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
This was great.
This was fun. Let's do it again.
We will.
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go, Edwin.
Signing off.